Today is the 12th of October. The time is 8:45, and this is the Ask TCW podcast, and it's live. Yes, hello and welcome along to this week's podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. Joining me this week is the usual gang of Andy Haywood.
Evening.
Tina Taylor.
Hiya.
Jono Bullard.
Good evening.
And our special guest this week is your home for hockey, Premier Sports main man, Mr. Aaron Murphy. Good evening, Murph.
Hey, Aaron, thanks for having me on and the whole group there. Good to be on with you guys. I like the show, so I was waiting for an invite.
Absolute pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure to get you on. Thank you very much for joining us. So how does a guy from Newfoundland end up commentating on hockey in the UK then?
That's a good question. Well, you know what? I came over here for a year, a decade ago, to work for a company called North American Sports Network. They had the NHL rights, and they just wanted someone to kind of manage the property. I came over for a year, and 10 years later, here I am. The rest, as they say, is history. I've worked for ESPN, ESPN America, and now back with Premier Sports. And all the while I was doing that stuff for NESN many moons ago, that was the goal, was to get back into hockey in a way other than just being behind the scenes, which I loved. Managing the NHL property is an honor, obviously, but I wanted to get back and be in the game at a more base level, and obviously being in the broadcast booth, that's as good as it gets if you're not playing or coaching anymore.
I mean, when you was a young kid, was it all you wanted to do, hockey?
Yeah, I mean, where I grew up in Newfoundland it's a hockey hotbed. Some of my buddies played in the NHL and guys I grew up with. So we all played, pond hockey and road hockey, and then 3-4 times a week played proper organized hockey. And as we got older, got to play on traveling teams and all that. So we all had a hope to play at some level, whether it be college or some of the other guys went on to higher levels. But yeah, I mean, it's our bread and butter in Canada, isn't it? And you could see that the last few years, the World Cups, the Olympics, the World Championships. It's a special time when we win. It's our favorite thing. So growing up, yeah, it was definitely my passion. It continues to be to this day.
Good. Well, we're going to get into some questions that we've had from everybody this week. So if you are listening live, then yes, get in touch with us. Use the hashtag AskTCW, and we'll ask any questions that you send in to us. So we'll get started. The first one is from Chief Dave on the Hockey Forum, and he asks, why do you call periods a stanza? You're the only person I've ever heard use that word.
I get asked questions like that all the time. I mean, it just came out once, and that's that. I mean, I people think I sit down and write things down. I don't. Sometimes someone will say to me, "Oh, where'd you come up with that?" And I'll go, "Oh, did I say that?" Hockey is fun. Where I grew up, hockey is definitely fun. So I like to bring a little bit of personality, and I'm glad he said that I'm the only person he's ever heard use that word. But hockey's poetry. Stanza comes from poetry, and for me, it came out once, and once in a while I throw it in there. I think if I'm just going to do the same thing everybody else does, then why bother, right?
Yeah, very, very true. So a couple of more on your sort of phrases. So Wilbur on the Hockey Forum says, where do you keep the good whiskey? And then how about that asks, are you covered in blue fur considering you're so obsessed with cookie jars? So, I mean, you said obviously, you don't want to, you want it to be a little bit different. So, where did they kind of come from? Is it just something that you say when you're involved in the game, or do you actually think about some of these sayings beforehand?
No, I don't think about them at all. And the blue fur, the cookie jar. I don't think I've ever said cookie jar. Maybe I have.
I think you've said cookie jar a couple of times, Murph.
Okay, well, see, there you go. I definitely don't have a list, a database of things, so I'm going to use that tonight. the good whiskey. Oh, the good whiskey was sitting right in front of me right now, Wilbur. No, look. It's just one of those things. When you're in Scotland or when you're in Northern Ireland, whiskey is a popular drink. So I think that's how that came about in an EIHL game. The cookies. Oh, I don't know. I remember Riley Emerson saying something like that last year. For me.
Yeah, he said it in the playoff final, I believe, to be honest. I think it was Schultz's goal. I think he said you keep top jar or top shelf where the grandma keeps the good cookies, if I'm right. Jono, is that right? You're a man of...
If Riley did steal it from me, I wasn't going to argue with him.
Did say something like that, actually, I believe. But it's a long time ago. I can't remember. I've been to sleep since then. So.
Okay, let's move on to some of the questions. But thank you very much for those questions from the Hockey Forum. So obviously, with you, with getting you on, Murph, obviously the deal about the no TV deal at the moment with the Elite League was obviously going to be brought up. So what are the panel's thoughts on no Elite League hockey being shown on TV? I'll come to Tina first, and then Murph will come to you at the end, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think it's a shame. And I think it's a little bit, it's almost bordering on the hypocritical, because so much was made of the Premier Sports deal and, trying to get us into, get us into the public eye a bit more. And obviously, TV is the way to do that for a sport, especially a minority sport. So with there being no TV deal, it just, seems like the Elite League they've taken a massive step backwards, after sort of say, we need to grow the sport and, we want a TV deal in place to, coming up to the beginning of this season, and we'd heard nothing. And then it's sort of been almost like an 11th hour announcement that there was not, the Premier Sports weren't going to be involved in showing Elite League ice hockey. I think it's disappointing, really, because it was something that, we'd started to get used to, and there were lots of subscribers, from what I understand, to Premier Sports for that reason. And I think it is a kind of, it is a way to get people interested. I mean, just as an example, I have a friend who lives up in Newcastle, and he's a massive New York Rangers fan, but and he sort of went to see a few Newcastle games back in the day when they were still going, and he wasn't horrendously impressed with the standard of it, having watched the NHL. But he was a subscriber to Premier Sports, and he would always watch the Elite League games when they were on. And he used to sort of say to me, "Oh, it's a lot different to when I used to watch it." So if on that sort of basis, if there were ever to be a team in Newcastle again, there's more chance that he would go to watch that team, after having seen the Elite League on the TV. So it's disappointing, I think, is pretty much the way I would summarise it.
I mean, Andy, the Elite League has grown kind of year on year in many aspects and in many areas, but surely not having a TV deal and showing it to the wider world, is it a backward step in your eyes?
Well, as a Premier Sports subscriber, yes, but what you've got to think of is it is a niche market. Where Premier Sports is the only place to watch hockey, so it makes sense to have it on there. But as a pay-per-view channel, is that going to attract new people? I would argue on Tina's point that if a friend is a hockey fan already and subscribes to the channel, he's going to know about hockey in this country, regardless of whether he particularly follows it or not. I personally would think that if Newcastle did get a team back up and running, that he would at least go and try it, regardless of whether he's watched Elite League on the telly. But what I will say is it is a shame, and it is ridiculous that we don't have a TV deal. And I do think that Premier Sports is ideally the right place to do it, because it keeps it all, from a selfish point of view as a hockey fan, it keeps it all in one place. I already pay for the subscription, so it would make perfect sense in that regard. But obviously, I think the end goal and sort of the big aim, but I certainly think that we're years and years and years away from it, is either a terrestrial channel or something like Sky Sports would be the dream. But it's a pipe dream. They won't touch. They've not touched the NHL other than Channel 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So if they're not touching those leagues, they're not going to be touching ours. So
very true.
We've got to take what we can, and to get rid of a Premier Sports deal for me is nothing short of crazy.
I mean, Jono, we've chatted about this subject, this season in the Bunkers Hill, haven't we? And it's annoying, isn't it? Really,
it is. I mean, Premier Sports strapline is the home for hockey, and it is, and they seem to be continually announcing more and more new hockey content every week. I mean, they've renewed the NHL deal for 5 years. You've got the Swedish Hockey League on there. We've obviously got the Continental Cup coming up. The Friendship 4 in Belfast that was announced today. Great Britain games in the World Championships, the Pool A World Championships. There's an awful lot of hockey on that channel. So it is the go-to place for ice hockey in Great Britain. So for the top league in the country not to be on there anymore, I think is a shame. Now, if the Elite League has got something else lined up which is better, and I know that Andy there mentioned Sky Sports or a free-to-air channel, they're all well and good, because it's like Tina said, Premier Sports is a niche. It's a subscription channel that you are going to go and subscribe to it if there is a sport on there that you want to watch. In our case, it's hockey, so that's why all of us here are subscribers.
Yeah.
However, on a free-to-air channel, or certainly a Freeview channel, if they can get it on there, then that is, of course, going to increase the exposure of hockey to people who've probably not seen it before, which would be a good thing. However, at the moment, we're in a situation where we're a month into the season and there's no TV deal, so there's absolutely no exposure. So both the Elite League and the teams and Premier Sports are losing out, and I think that's a great shame.
I mean, Murph, I'll bring you in now. Obviously, you're the main man on Premier Sports. Like Johnny just mentioned, there's a lot of things being announced on Premier Sports. It must be frustrating for you for Premier Sports to not have that deal in place currently, because of the work that you've done over the last few years.
Well, I don't know if it's frustrating. It's disappointing because I love the league, obviously, and I want the league to succeed. And interesting, and I take all the points on board there. It is a niche sports channel, as Andy mentioned there, but it's not, because I've had people reach out to me who are NRL fans, who are NASCAR fans, who knew nothing about the Coventry Blaze, who knew nothing about the Sheffield Steelers, Australians living an hour outside of Sheffield and stuff like that. They watch the NRL and then they see a rear on a Saturday morning of a hockey game, and they see a rear of Adam Keefe in a fight with Devin Didiamete or whatever. And then they go, oh, I didn't even realize I could go see hockey. So there's a couple of people that follow me on Twitter, and they're real characters. They kind of troll me once in a while, and if they're listening now, they know who they are. But these are people who subscribe to Premier to watch NRL rugby, and now they've gone to see Elite League hockey. And just to give you an idea, we have a good number of hockey subscribers. We have 5 times as many rugby subscribers. So you had a chance there, if you're the Elite League, to capture an audience that, even if only 5 people came to a game and gave you 20 quid, that's still enough money for you to implement, for example, the 4-man refereeing system or whatever. There's so many variables there. There are NASCAR fans that used to get fed up if we put a race on delay because we had a Sunday afternoon playoff game or whatever on Premier for the Elite League, and those NASCAR fans then go, well, what's this all about? I didn't even know there was hockey in Belfast. So there's a big base there that are NASCAR fans. So I'm sorry, it's a little bit silly to think that no one from another sport or from another fan base would never, ever see the Elite League on Premier. It's absolutely a bit arrogant, in my opinion. But look, look, you have to respect this. It's a business decision at the end of the day. They think they have some innovative ideas coming down the pipe. I've said this before. I wish them well, but this is their decision. Premier made an offer that had 3 options. They all had monetary figures on them. They all included a weekly highlight show. No one's talking about that, but one of the deals was 2 or 3 games a month plus a weekly highlight show. Well, Premier also said, look, we don't care if you get a side deal to have a terrestrial. Like, a terrestrial deal would help Premier. Because if you saw the Elite League on a free channel and you liked it, then you go, oh, there's somewhere else I can go watch this. Oh, well, I can go see another 2 games a month on Premier. That would have helped Premier. So they could have had their cake and eat it too, in my opinion. They could have accepted the deal and then continued to do whatever they're doing right now and look for something. I just don't know if thinking outside the box happened. I do know kind of what's in the pipeline, and I hope it works out for them. But I do think they probably should have thought a little bit harder about what was on the table, including that weekly highlight show, which would have been invaluable in my opinion, because it's not just about bringing new fans to the game or enlightening people like the NRL fans. It's also so smaller clubs can go to their sponsors and go, okay, you're giving us X amount, but because we're going to be on TV weekly on a highlight show, we're going to need a little bit more from you. It's a way for many things to happen, and unfortunately it just didn't work out, I guess.
I mean, if you're listening to us live now, get in touch. Let us know what you think regarding the fact that there is no TV deal in place currently. Just use the hashtag AskTCW if you'd like to get in touch with us. I mean, Murph, at the moment, obviously, as it's well known and we've just discussed, no deal at the moment with Premier. When you just look back at what's Premier done for the last few seasons since it's been showcased in the Elite League, how do you look back at it? Do you look back at it fondly, or do you think you were kind of only just getting started?
Well, both, very fondly. I love the league. I love going to all the rinks. I love the fans. I love the feedback, and I love the sport. But I do think we were just getting started. Come on, is anyone going to do 14 hours of playoff coverage on a Saturday and Sunday in April if you're up against football or whatever on a terrestrial channel? Probably not. So I think we were just getting started on some of the things we could do. There were lots of ideas. Like, I won't get into it because it's not going to happen, but there were so many things that Premier would have liked to maybe roll out. But, fondly is definitely the word. I loved every minute of it, and you never know. Never say never. Hopefully maybe it comes swings and roundabouts. That's sports broadcasting as well. Sometimes you have to sit out a year or two, and it comes around. But look at all, as Jono mentioned, look at all the hockey. We announced the NCAA Friendship 4 today. We have the Champions Hockey League. We have the Swedish Hockey League. We're doing the Continental Cup, the Top Pool World Championships. All those things are incredible draws for us. So we'll be fine. But we would have liked to have give a commitment to the league, and one of the offers was a long-term deal, that was frustrating for me that they wouldn't think of security and exposure to build their marketing base, or maybe even think about sponsorship.
Just a very quick one, which I just thought. What's your favourite sort of arena or rink that you've been to in the Elite League?
Oh boy, you're throwing me under the bus there. Well, I like several for different reasons. I like Belfast because it's a modern arena, kind of reminds me of Canada, like an American Hockey League arena. I grew up in St. John's, Newfoundland. We have an AHL team there, the Ice Caps, and the arena there in SSE Arena reminds me of Mile One Stadium back in St. John's. I love Fife because of the atmosphere and the sheer passion there, and the noise, the rumble when the Flyers score a goal. I haven't been to Cardiff's new arena, but I thought the Big Blue Tent, despite all the bad publicity, it had its charms. It was certainly a place that was a fortress for Cardiff. I had, during a live broadcast, I had someone throw a beer over me. It was just a different sort of place. So I have some favorites for sure.
Okay, well, we've had a tweet in from Anton Marijuana, who was on Monday's podcast, and he says, I loved the highlight show, big miss. Just wish the live games were regular rather than one-offs. So if you are listening, like I say, do get in touch. And do you agree with that? Were the highlight show the big miss?
I think at the very least, the offers from Premier were at least 2 games a month plus a weekly highlight show. So you're looking at 6 6 broadcast slots a month, right? So, it's just one of those things that hockey to produce, and Jono knows this. He's been learning a lot, I'm sure, doing some OB work on the Champions Hockey League, and Jono, I think you're going to the Continental Cup and the Friendship
Belfast
Fork
as well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But everyone who's ever maybe complained about 24/7 or whatever, how much work goes into just a single game?
Oh, it's incredible. I've actually said I was going to write an article for the website, and I've still not just found the time to do it. But it's a tremendous amount of work, because you have to get there the day before to set up. And you're probably at the rink for 12 hours setting up, checking cameras, making sure all the cabling's right, all the health and safety's in place, so the crowd and the public coming to the rink are safe when they come in, they're not tripping over anything. And then you're back there again the next day to test everything, make sure everything's working, to do tests, to check that the satellite feed is working, and then you do the live broadcast itself. And then once the live broadcast is finished, then you've got to take everything down, which is probably another 2-3 hours, and you find yourself leaving in the middle of the night. I mean, there was one game, I was recently in Rouen for a CHL game, and we travelled back overnight to do the Sheffield game on the Sunday. So we did two games with no sleep. So this is the sort of thing. People think television it's a glamorous life. It's not in the slightest. It's a lot of hard work to bring a game to the television.
And that's my point. So all of those guys coming back from Rouen, and all of those guys in hotels, and all of those guys having to be fed, all of those guys having to be transported, all of those guys having to be paid, because none of you are doing it for the goodness of your health. Premier was offering to cover all those production costs for the Elite League, 2 games a month and the highlight show, so plus give them money. A game of hockey to produce is expensive. So if someone's offering to cover those production costs for you, you might want to think about it. But look, again, I look back so fondly. I do think we were just scratching the surface, and it was getting better year on year. So I think with maybe a 2 or 3 year deal, some real efforts could have been made to invest even more into the broadcasts as they improved over the years.
Well, so sticking to another question, and this question comes from Mr. Paul Baum, from the Cat's Whiskers podcast, and he says it's on about TV, etc. So, is pay-to-view TV the way the Elite League should be going? Would a free-to-watch alternative be better? And he says he's thinking all the way down to a carefully selected free webcast here, not just TV. Andy, what's your thoughts on that first?
Well, I think we've sort of touched on it earlier on with regards, the Premier Sports deal not being around. I think ultimately, yes, that would be the perfect solution. But I think we're still quite a far away from that, unfortunately. Which is why I think ultimately we need a Premier Sports deal. If they could go about either, a free webcast, or even if it was like a relatively cheap subscription for like the year, and you could watch all the podcasts, like a Game Center or something like that, then that would be better than nothing for certain. But I think like we said, the end goal, and the main aim has surely got to be maximum exposure on a free to air or a sort of a sports channel where it is massively subscribed, where we're talking millions, but ultimately we're light years away from that, realistically.
I mean, Murph, obviously you used to be involved in the Giants Live TV and their webcasts that they do. What's your thoughts on the kind of the webcasts that are on offer throughout the Elite League at the moment?
I think the webcasts are great, and it's a great alternative to having a TV deal. And I think it's a great sort of supplementary bit of content on both sides of the coin, right? There's people that just want to watch the Fife Flyers, so they can go and watch that webcast. What this whole free-to-air thing kind of makes me scratch my head. When I go back to Canada, there's only one game a week on TV that's free, Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday night, and then in the playoffs there's free games. But if you want to watch all the games on Sportsnet and all that, like, none of those channels are free. That's why the NHL pays gets paid $52 billion gazillion in North America. I mean, NBC has some free games in the States. In Canada, people do pay for the 2 games a night or whatever. They do pay for NHL Center Ice and all that. Like, it's not like over there we get everything for free. So I don't know why 2 or 3 games on free to air would be better than having 20 on a pay-per-view service. What I will say is, I think it would be absolutely fantastic for the Elite League to be on a pay-per-view or free-to-air channel once a month, twice a month, and then supplement that by making some money off of Premier Sports deal. And then you have your 150 or your 200 webcasts. Then you're covering all the bases. And then guys like yourself doing podcasts and your own coverage and your own interviews. I mean, that's where it's evolving to. But in the meantime, you've got to kind of remain relevant.
Very true. We've had another tweet in, and this one is from Max Artis. Hello, Max. Thank you for listening. And he says, "Hi, Murph on Ice. What can fans do to boost the Elite League stature?"
Well, I mean, the fans are not the fans are magnificent. You go to 2 arenas, everyone's wearing a jersey, everyone's paying their $22.50 or whatever for a seat. The fans are absolutely magnificent, and the fans were behind Premier Sports coverage, because let's be honest, not everyone can afford to go to Nottingham for the playoffs. Not everyone can afford to pay for that. But if they paid $10 a month and they have Premier Sports for the NHL and all sorts of things, then they get to watch 14 hours of playoff coverage. So the fans, to boost the level, I don't know what more the fans could do. There's so many fans doing media. There's fans doing media better than some of the clubs. So I mean, the fans are already doing their bit, and other than donating every last cent to the clubs, I think the fans are one of the strongest parts of the Elite League.
I mean, Tina, obviously, like Murph just says there, fan interaction and what the actual production of media, basically by fans, has grown massively over the last couple of years, hasn't it? Really.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when I first started, because obviously I've said it many, many times, I'm relatively new to hockey. So
not anymore. You're not.
I'm still the newbie in terms of the Cat's Whiskers podcast, so I'm going to take that. I'm sticking with that for now. Anyway, but yeah, I think I've had the opportunity to see more growth in the space of time that I've been watching than any of the rest of you guys, definitely in terms of the Elite League, because I think when I first started watching, I sort of vaguely became aware that I think that this is sort of back in the days when you were doing the Cover It Live stuff, and then it evolved into Cat's Whiskers TV, and now there's the Cat's Whiskers podcast. I mean, the only other podcast I was aware of when sort of in my first year or two was A View from the Bridge. So, I mean, now I think most teams in the Elite League have fans who are doing at least, they're doing a podcast, or there's blogs, there's various media-related things that are happening. The standard of play has evolved in the Elite League quite, by a sizable margin, I would say. The names that we're attracting to this league are far and away what they were even 6 years ago when I started watching. So, I think I've sort of wandered off the original point of Aaron's question now, but I think the league needs to continue to go forward, and like Murph says, I think the fans are doing their bit in those sorts of terms.
Very true. Okay. Well, thank you for getting in touch, Max. We'll move on to another question now, and this one comes from Paul Tracy, talking about fan interaction and fan podcasts. You can catch Paul Tracy on the Manchester Storm podcast, which is The Forecast, and he was on our podcast last Thursday. And now he sent a very long email to Tina, so I will just try and simplify it down for you. So with the imminent introduction of goal line technology in the Elite League, how do the panel think the review system will work on the night, and who will be involved? Jono, you take that one first for us.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be involved in a goal line decision when I was in Rouen doing the CHL. So there was a shot came in, the net got dislodged, the puck went in, and the referee originally washed the goal off, but then he came to have a look at it on review, and he basically came to the penalty box. I was in connection with the outside broadcast truck, so I was telling them what the referee wanted to see, what angles he wanted to see, and he also had the other referee with him because it was a 4-man system, and they were in discussions for the whole time while they was watching the replays come back, and they changed their decision and actually gave it a goal. So I think ultimately it will be the referee who will be involved, and it will be the referee who makes the decision once it does come in.
Can I just add something as a point on that? And I cannot remember where this came from, or what game it was in. But I seem to recall there was a game that was being recorded, possibly by Sky, a few years back, and there was a goal that was under dispute, or a non-goal that was under dispute. And the referee, and I don't think I was at the game because I got told about this afterwards. But Murray Hansen was the referee, and he actually used the TV cameras to try and determine whether or not there was a goal. And as I say, I can't remember what game it was, but yeah, I think apparently he spent quite a long time deliberating over it, and it was just him that did the review of the goal.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, Murph, coming to you next with this. Paul also asks about whether, will all questionable goals be reviewed once this technology is introduced? I mean, first of all, is it a good thing that this is coming to the Elite League in your eyes, and how do you think it will work regarding these questionable reviews, which we'll obviously get?
Well, it's a great initiative, and absolutely, I just hope every club does it, because if 9 clubs or 8 clubs do it, then it kind of skews the result, doesn't it? I mean, not to go back to it over and over again, but for the playoff final weekend, we had to provide the technology for the referees, for Tom Darnell and Mike Hicks, to go in and review a goal, right? Mm-hmm. So that worked, and you don't want a playoff final weekend being decided by something controversial. You want the right call made. What I will say, though, and it drives me nuts in other sports, I don't want the referee to, every time there's a problem, to go to the review. It has to be something that is big, and he just can't make the right decision. You want the referees to be skilled enough to make the calls on the ice. You want the call on the ice to be right. And I think we have some pretty good officials. Tom Darnell is a very good referee, and usually when you look back at the calls he's made, they're the right ones. Now, as far as controversial goals, there was a goal a couple of years ago in one of these playoff finals we did that actually went through the net. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen a puck leave the goal area at a 90-degree angle. And Neil, the coach, Russell, to his credit, before he was the general manager of the Manchester Storm, I think that's gone through the net. And where they had us that year at the NIC, we were down in the corner or something. It was an impossible angle to call a game, but nevertheless, where Neil was standing, he could see that. To Paul, 80 and I, it looked like it had come off the post and gone out on a 90-degree angle. I've never seen a puck go through the net and kick out the other side on a 90-degree angle. Sure enough, that was the case. Now, that was a situation where you want to use the technology, right? You don't want every goal or every goal line scramble going to the video replay, or a game will take 3.5 hours. But that was a good example of it going for good instead of evil. So you need that technology there. But to also take it a step further, I think it's crazy not to have the 4-man system. It's absolutely crazy. And if it's going to cost every club an extra $200 a game or something like that, just use a local referee that doesn't need a hotel. I know it's easier said than done, but for player safety, for getting the calls right, for bringing younger referees along, I mean, you don't see the Swedish Hockey League or the Champions Hockey League using a 3-man system. And I hear so many people around the Elite League going, oh, that's what we're aspiring to, right? Lots of experts around the league going, we want to be like Frölunda, we want to be like, Red Bull Salzburg. Well, it starts by protecting the players, and it starts by bringing along some officials. And I think the four-man system has to be something that's taken seriously, or without that, I think, goal line technology is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. It's a great initiative, but I think the four-man system really needs to be reviewed. And if it's going to cost an extra couple of $100 a game, someone's going to have to bite the bullet if you're going to be a professional sports league.
Yeah, I agree with that, to be fair as well. Thank you very much for your question, Paul. I hope we've answered it well enough for you. And the Continental Cup has been mentioned throughout this podcast so far. So we'll move on to a question based around that. And that comes from John Casey from the Cage Forum. And they ask, what would be the better achievement, winning the league or the Continental Cup? Now, I'll come from a Panthers point of view first, and then I'll go to the neutral of Murph at the end. So, Andy, which one would be the better achievement for you, the league or the Continental Cup?
It's difficult. I think ultimately the league will be seen as more difficult to win. I think with the CHL in play, and obviously the sort of the big teams in Europe all in there, it has watered down the opposition in the Continental Cup. So I do think that's now classed as probably going to be easier to win. That being said, I think it would be great for the league if one of the EIHL teams do win it, because it'd be a great advert for the sport over here. The fact that we've won one of the European trophies. So I think they've both got pros and cons. Personally, for me, I think the league is probably, in my opinion, the bigger prize. But having said that, I certainly wouldn't turn my nose up at European success.
Okie dokie. I mean, Murph, from a neutral point of view, how big do you think it would be to the wider world if Panthers did go on and were to win the Continental Cup?
I think it'd be massive, because, I mean, you're talking about, from the whole paradigm of, TV deal, we need to be on a free-to-air channel, we need to grow the game, we need to expose it to more people. Well, winning the Elite League, no one in Denmark gives a hoot about the Panthers winning the Elite League. But if the Panthers were to beat a team from Denmark for the Continental Cup, then that would raise some eyebrows in continental Europe, for example. I think it would be fantastic for the EIHL as a whole, because any sort of success in Europe is going to be a big success. Look, the Panthers, why not win both, right? The fan base would say. But I did a Champions Hockey League game last night for Frölunda versus Jono Minsk. And Jono Minsk won the Continental Cup in 2007, I believe, and again in 2011. And this is a team that in this Champions Hockey League, they beat the Växjö Lakers in the group stage, and they beat the Frölunda Gothenburg team in leg one. Unfortunately for Jono Minsk, they ran out of gas last night, and Frölunda overturned the deficit from leg one and advanced. But my point is this is a team that's won 2 Continental Cups in the last decade, and they're beating the best teams in Europe, Växjö, Frölunda. And if an Elite League team wants to kind of, like I said, some of these experts go, and we want to emulate the Frölundas and the Växjö as well. Winning a Continental Cup is a step in the right direction if you look at a team like Jono Minsk.
Yeah, very true. And you can catch the Continental Cup on Premier Sports, can't you, Murph? I'll give you 10 seconds to do a little plug here for the Continental Cup.
Yeah, October 21st to the 23rd, all the 3 games for the Nottingham Panthers will be live on Premier Sports. Paul Adey and I will be in the broadcast booth, and Jono will be there making sure we stay in line. So check premiersports.com. But all of those games will be live against the various opposition of Spain, Latvia, and I believe a Turkish side.
And you must be excited about that.
Yeah, look, my favorite thing to do is call hockey games, right? I'm 42 now. I'm not going to go out and play at any level anymore just because the body and because there's no rink in Dublin, so that's a good excuse as well. But to be in the broadcast booth for live hockey like that, to be a part of the Panthers' foray into Europe is special. We announced the NCAA Friendship 4. I did the Friendship 4 last year, but unfortunately it wasn't on Premier. This year it will be. Those sort of things are fantastic, man. I mean, there's a guy called Matt Benning who will make the Edmonton Oilers starting roster. He played in the Friendship 4 last year. I mean, it's just fantastic to see those sort of storylines and greater hockey on the greater whole, you know?
Yeah, true. We've only got 5 minutes left, so we'll go through a few things very quickly now. Murph, I'd like to get your view on something that has come out today pretty much just before we actually came on air, and that's Craig Peacock. No further action against Craig Peacock. Dops have made their decision, and they're saying no action will be taken. I can just imagine, the guys from A View from the Bridge. Davey must be absolutely storming up and down his landing right now, I can imagine. So listen to their podcast next week, because I'm sure you'll hear some interesting thoughts on that. But just very quickly, what's your initial reaction to that Dops decision, Murph?
Always look at a player's reaction, the opposition. When a goal is scored and you think, oh, was that in? Look at the guy who shot the puck, right? His reaction will tell you if it was a goal. Look at the reaction of Jonathan Boxall after that slash by Peacock. That'll tell you all you need to know. I think that maybe they're saying there wasn't an injury and the call on the night stands and he got thrown out and all that, but I think there's a chance to send a message there. You have to be in control of your stick. And any sort of chopping down the Christmas tree action for me is probably another game. But you know what? Maybe then Boxall steps in there and has a fight there, and his teammates like that. But I saw it briefly before we came on here. I'd like to look at it again. And I know Craig Peacock very well. He's a very good player. He's not a dirty player, so that was probably factored in as well. He's not a repeat offender, but you've got to be in control of your stick, and any sort of motion like that is very dangerous. And when you get a chance to send a message about stick play like that, sometimes I think it's better to just take it, give the guy a game, and then go, look, this is not going to be tolerated.
Yeah. We will be talking about the Craig Peacock incident more on tomorrow's podcast. Don't forget, you can catch that at 8:45 tomorrow. Now, Murph, I'll give you the final word. 30 seconds left, but just remind everybody that's listening to this podcast what's coming up on Premier Sports over the coming months.
Yeah, we've got Swedish Hockey League tomorrow, Brynäs Leksand. We've got the Continental Cup coming up October 21st to the 23rd. We got Swedish Hockey League and Champions Hockey League in November. We've got the NCAA Friendship 4 at the end of November. We've got 2 NHL games live at night. And I've been told there's even more hockey in the pipeline, more announcements to hopefully be made. So it's jam-packed. Team GB games from Belfast will be live. The Top Pool World Championship. So there's going to be over 600 hockey games on Premier Sports this winter. And the last thing I'll say is, look, I wish the Elite League very well. I hope they do have a TV deal because the fans deserve it. I hope that something is in the pipeline. I know there's some people working very hard behind the scenes to make that happen. I will just say I think there was a deal to be made there that could have had Premier and a free-to-air channel, which would have really been special. But I wish them well. I love the league, and I'm going to go see some games as a fan this year and have a few beers. So that'll be a novel idea for sure. And thanks for having me on, guys. A pleasure to talk hockey with you.
Well, Murph, thank you very much for coming on. We really do appreciate the time that you've given us and your views on the questions that's been asked. But thank you to Andy.
No worries at all.
Thank you, Tina.
Pleasure, TTFN.
Thank you, Jono.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, mate.
And finally, Murph, once again, thank you very much for coming on.
Cheers, guys. The pleasure was mine.
Thank you very much for listening. That is this week's Ask TCW podcast done. But don't forget, you can catch us tomorrow night at 8:45 with the preview to the weekend. But thank you very much for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.